Hello and welcome to the Chelsea debate. My name's Dom Toner and a big thanks to anyone joining for the first episode. Last summer I decided to start a Twitter account. There's over 2,500 of you now. So big thanks to anyone that has enjoyed that. I've decided to start a YouTube channel to try and branch it out. So if you like any of the content here, please like and subscribe below. Joining me though, Josh Langford. Josh, you okay, mate?
Yeah, I'm not bad at all, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. Now, we've done a couple of these to practice, and the plan was to release our first episode ahead of Wednesday night's game against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Unfortunately, though, this morning we woke up to plenty of reports that Frank Lampard was to be sacked by Chelsea. Within a few hours later, the club confirmed it. Really not happy with it, but Thomas Tuchel is the man set to replace him. There's no confirmation yet from the club. But Josh, let's dive straight in. Frank Lampard sacked by Chelsea this morning. When you read the news and it's confirmed, what were your initial thoughts to it?
Well, honestly, you just gutted, aren't you? Because he's he's probably the greatest player that the club's ever had. You know, he's obviously a record scorer. He's just been brilliant. But even forget he's playing sort of on the field antics, off the pitch as a manager. I think he's been brilliant. You know, he's successfully brought in the youth. And now it looks like we've got some absolute stars coming through for the next sort of 10 years. He did well last year. I just absolutely gutted, honestly. I can't even put it into words.
Yeah, I'm gutted myself. It's difficult though, isn't it? Because you've got to try and look at it two ways. The romantic side of things, if we go back to when Frank first got appointed, I'm 25, so throughout my whole Chelsea sort of adventure, Frank Lampard's been at the heart of it as a player. And I know a lot of people my age, when Frank was appointed, it was a dream, and you want to breathe into the idea. This is it now. We are going to change. We're going to be that club. And I was very excited. He came in. There was not as much pressure on him. And if we actually look at it from the start, first season, top four, FA Cup final. All right, a defeat to Arsenal. Champions League as well. We lost in the knockouts to the winners, Bayern. But it was a decent first season, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought, when you take all things into account, we lost Hazard, probably the best player in the league, one of the best in Europe. We had the transfer ban, and going back to the way he integrated the youth, threw it into it. I thought it was a brilliant first season, massively overachieved.
Yeah, he did. And then, of course, we move on to this season, over 200 million spent. We knew, didn't we, that the microscope was going to be on Frank and the team. So, halfway into the season now, what's happened?
Well, the players, some of the signings haven't clicked. Obviously, you've seen a lot sort of in social media today that, he's poor in the transfer market. And I don't think that's fair. Silva, you'd have to put him down as one of the best bits of business that's been done in the league in the last 12 months. I've really liked the look of Ben Chilwell when he's been fit enough to play. And then obviously, Havertz and Werner are two massive buys who just sort of haven't clicked yet. But there's not a rich history of imports coming into the league and clicking quickly. So I think, you have to put all that into perspective, and obviously it's just not helped him, unfortunately. So, yeah, I think it's bad.
Yeah. You mentioned Thiago Silva. All the players are starting to come out now. Reece James, Tammy Abraham, with all these posts for Frank. So difficult to read because I was one of the supporters who was so excited, and even till very recently, I know there's a big divide in the fan base, and you've got to look at it. Roman's made the decision now. You're gonna have to support that, aren't you? And we're gonna have to look to the new manager and get behind him. But it's quite difficult at this point in time to just wave goodbye to Frank like that, because, like you say, he's got so many young players through. Reece James and Mason Mount, in particular, have been two standouts, haven't they?
Mm. Yeah, no, there's been a lot of talk about Mason Mount as probably the next long-term Chelsea captain, and I fully am behind that. Reece James looks absolutely fantastic. I think also you'd have to mention, he's not been sort of quite so at the forefront, Hudson-Odoi has been brilliant. He looked brilliant when he came on Sunday even. Sorry. So yeah, there's lots of highlights that he's done, and I think also the key point for me is with him going. Obviously, under Abramovich, we've obviously had a lot of managers, and as soon as it starts to go a little bit wrong, he gets rid of them and we get the next one. But at some point, I always think that's got to change. I mean, when Frank got the job, I did think you had to look at it as people were saying, is it too soon? But where else was there to go? We'd had a lot of the big name managers that were about, other than the obvious ones that are sort of Klopp and Guardiola that you weren't going to get. So I thought it was a great time and a great opportunity to change the sort of mantra of the club and have a manager that we were all dreaming that he'd be there for the next 20 years, weren't we, in reality?
We were, and do you know what? He did have some, while we can, we'll still look at the positives for now. He had some good moments. I've just got down here, 2 games against Ajax last season, Champions League, that famous 4-4 draw, an away win as well. Also, he sort of helped us win against Spurs and Arsenal away. He pulled off some good individual moments, and there were some moments in there he looked an astute manager. Like he's young, he's very inexperienced, especially at the top level, but he did show glimpses, didn't he? And he got a lot last season out of the squad.
Yeah, no, he did. Well, for me, the biggest highlight, you'd have to say, with the squad that we had last season, for him to get the top 4 was an outstanding result. That was my biggest worry last year with the transfer ban, losing Hazard. Would we actually make the top 4? Which, I appreciate it's not a trophy, but it's obviously where we needed to be. And he managed it. He, obviously, with the FA Cup final, we just fell just short, unfortunately. But I think it was an outstanding first season. I really do. And, I mean, even this season, I don't think it's gone horrifically wrong. You look at the league table, with 5 points off 4th place. He's still in the Champions League, still in the FA Cup. I just can't get over it. I think it was really premature.
So, yeah, you're of the feeling that he pulled the plug too soon, given our fixtures coming up as well. You think perhaps giving him a few more games to see if he could have turned it around? Because like you say, only 5 points behind. Do you think it's too soon?
Yeah, I'd have probably given him the season regardless. I just think, I appreciate where some fans are coming from, but I think when you've got a manager of that stature in the club, I mean, the outcry of the players today, sort of like thanking him for all his efforts, that sort of shows he hadn't lost the dressing room for me. Obviously, there'll have been no doubt the odd ones that weren't behind him. Obviously, you're going to get that. But as a rule, the dressing room were behind him. And we've seen it with Arsenal this year. Liverpool now, Man United started slowly. What you're seeing this year is 2 or 3 results rapidly changed the whole outlook of the season. And I just think with our upcoming fixtures, we've got Wolves Wednesday, then Burnley, and even Tottenham. I think, say you get 7 points out of those 9, other teams would have made mistakes and dropped points. I think you'd have been looking at a very different season. And like I say, still in the FA Cup and Champions League. Yeah,
it's interesting. You mentioned Arteta there, because you sort of got grouped together, didn't they? Arteta, Ollie and Frank. They sort of, a lot of people were comparing the 3, how they were getting on. And you've got to say, last season, Frank getting top 4 out of the 3, perhaps looked the strongest position. You've got to take it with a pinch of salt, given our history with clubs. But you looked at Ollie earlier in the season. They were struggling. They were right down there. Arsenal slipped far lower than we have right now. Yet, bit of patience with Ollie, and they're at the top of the league now, aren't they? So, it can pay off, that patience. Mikel Arteta, similarly, he's got a few results now. They're starting to turn a corner. And in a season like this, it's bizarre to me that he's done it. They've done it now, especially with the games coming up, because there was so much more, so much more time to change it. I was just wondering, do you think that he took the job too soon? Of course, he's mentioned this before. This is his club, and there's no denying that. And he was never going to say no when he got the opportunity. But do you think it was too soon for him?
No, I don't. Obviously, he'd only had the 1 season at Derby, but he did do a good job there. I thought it was the perfect storm at the time. Under normal circumstances, then there's more of an argument for it being too soon. But I really do think it was the perfect storm, as I've already said, with the transfer ban, Hazard leaving. I thought you were looking at possibly he'd be given time because of that. And obviously then he overperformed. But no, I think it was the right time. I think in terms of, you've got to start somewhere. And as a fan, I would have liked to have seen him be there for 10, 15, 20 years. That's got to start at some point. and I was looking forward to it, and I was enjoying the growth of the players, the development of him, and also the development of him as a manager. I thought when you see him in his press conferences, he seemed, more astute, more sort of self-assured, and that's what you like to see as a manager. It's sort of when the manager's confident, it breeds confidence in the players and then the fans. So I thought it was the right time with taking all things into account.
I think so, yeah. And they're always grouped together. If you look to Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard, really similar starting managerial at the same sort of time. And Stevie G went a different route. He went over to Rangers, and I've watched a lot of Scottish football, and he's done brilliant over there, and he's built it up. But the opportunity wasn't there in that sense for him to take over at Liverpool. I mean, he's going to be a future Liverpool manager. I've got no doubt about that. But the opportunity wasn't there. Frank was never going to turn it down at Chelsea. And like you say, he was coming at a time, although difficult, with Hazard leaving and the transfer ban, it gave him that time, didn't it, to sort of settle in the first year. But you can't expect overnight for Frank to just put us up there. And if you do remember early in the season, we were actually at the top of the table. So it's not a complete disaster, but it's just frustrating. And for me, he's a very intelligent man. I don't think he'll have a problem getting a job elsewhere. And I've seen a lot of people suggest on Twitter that he could be, a Chelsea manager in future. They're not ruling that out that he could return, but it's not his time right now. So yeah, maybe it was too soon, but we're only going to see what happens from there.
But I mean, you mentioned Steven Gerrard there, and I think it's important that you actually, add a bit of context to the job Gerrard took on the Rangers job, where they were consistently second, but a distant second to Celtic. So his biggest job was really closing the gap, and he's done it brilliantly. Don't get me wrong, but he's been consistently backed when they were top of the table around the same stage last year, and then it went wrong and they came second by I'd have to double check, but it was a fair few points. And there was never a talk of, sack the manager. Obviously, Frank's went to Derby, and since he's been at Chelsea, it's a different pressure. Chelsea and Abramovich, we expect to win trophies. So I think there's obviously the obvious comparisons are going to be there. But I also think you do have to sort of add a bit of context to, they're two very, very different jobs.
Yeah, they are. Do you know what? There's been some really inconsistency in this team, this year and last year. But personally, from my, with an emotional sort of view on it, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that the results were inconsistent with a young team and a young manager. Maybe that's because that manager was, you can't escape. That's who Frank Lampard is. But I was willing to go through that because I love him as a guy, and he knows everything about Chelsea. So I was happy with that. I sort of bought into the romance of it. But the manager clearly doesn't. So were we foolish in the first place for believing it could be like that? Well, myself anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I was the same, but I don't think we were. I think you have to look at it as, for what he lacked in experience, he gained in understanding of the club. He knows the club's DNA. He laid the foundations to that DNA in reality. So I think it's just, it's not sort of fair to discuss, and people blame the inexperience for it going wrong. And I think it's just circumstances, isn't it? And it, like you say, the inconsistency in results, that doesn't really bother myself, because it's to be expected. As much as the microscope's on him for spending £220 million and results not being perfect, by the same token, he spent £220 million on a lot of players that were going to take time to settle into the league, settle into the team. I mean, even now he's gone, what's our strongest first 11? We don't really know in reality. So I think it was always going to take time. And I just kind of feel like by the club, it's obviously premature. And if you were going to put such an investment in, you also have to give it time. And I just feel like they've sort of gone half-hearted with it. So yeah, it's just disappointing. It really is.
That's a fair point, isn't it? Because I don't think he knew his best 11 at any point this season. Each week we try and predict, and we see all these predicted lineups. A lot of the time they're wrong because there's alteration, there's players in and out of form. The only sort of ever present that you feel first name on the team sheet, and yeah, he gets mocked for it, but is Mason Mount. Can we just talk about players like Mount, James, and Tammy, because really they've developed under him? Are they in risk of the next manager of being cast aside because he was so strong and opinionated on playing these young players, and that's a lot of the reason why Chelsea fans were enjoying his time at the club. Is there a risk now, or are those players at a level now where they're too good that it doesn't matter if they're young academy players, they'll still be in the first 11?
I think it's hard to say. There are a lot of factors I think that actually impact it, because obviously you'll have the new manager. It looks like it is Tuchel, and I think that will he want to bring his own players in? Probably. Will he be able to? With financial fair play, obviously the coronavirus pandemic, obviously revenues have dropped, so money's going to be tighter. So it depends what sort of budget he's going to come in and have. I'd like to think he'll come in and look at the form of the players, the performances, and, Mount and Reece James in particular, you'd think would be safe. Tammy, perhaps less so. He has been more inconsistent, but he's still got 11 goals in 25 games. So he's sort of, going along nicely as a sort of backup striker for me, which is where I feel he's in the right position at the moment. And when he was fantastic yesterday, wasn't he? But so you'd like to think they'd be safe, but only time will tell. And I think there's a lot more factors than just does the manager like them that will affect it.
Yeah, it's a bit of my brain's all scattered at the minute. I'm just trying to sink it in. I expected it maybe after the Leicester defeat. I know a lot of people were talking about it, but it didn't come. And then after pretty convincing FA Cup win, and we thought perhaps that it'd be a turning point, a catalyst going into these games. And what is a huge game on Wednesday, isn't it, against Wolves? Now it's magnified even more with the manager situation. And those players now, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't, because if they go and put a good performance in now, everyone's going to be on their case for where was that before. And it's
well, I think you look at it, and yeah, obviously I take your point. That is obviously now how it's looking for Wednesday being obviously a bigger game. But I'd have to say, other than the Leicester game, recent games, I don't think there has been a lack of effort, a lack of sort of desire. And I do emphasise other than the Leicester game. So I think there will be performance. I really hope we get a result, obviously, because it's sort of, you'd like to think we would, but you just never know. But what worries me now is, it's sort of mocked on social media how Lampard and Mount's relationship, and sort of with a few of the other players as well. I hope their confidence and form doesn't dip as a result of him going, because like you've just asked me the question, will the new manager keep them in? They're going to be thinking that themselves, aren't they? It's just sort of only natural to think you'd worry about your position. So I mean, let me put it to you. When obviously we're both big Frank Lampard fans, but obviously I think we agreed on it being premature. When would you have pulled the trigger if you would be getting to a position of pulling the trigger?
Well, I mean, I would have waited till the end of the season, personally. You do say there was no lack of effort, and I'm going to go along with that. I don't think the players have down tools. I don't think it's a case of that. Perhaps a lack of ideas, though, in the last few games. Creativity has been an issue. Look at the talent we've got, and we have come up short quite a few times. Now, look, if we lost the next 5-6 games and there started to be a really big distance from us in the top 4, I could understand it. But I don't understand it now. I can see it coming, perhaps, but I certainly don't understand it. I would have given till the end of the season, definitely. That's what I would have done. But there you go. It doesn't matter what I would do, and there's a lot of frustrated Chelsea fans out there. Should we have a look at? It's been strongly reported that Thomas Tuchel will be the man to replace. It could even be now. I should put my notifications on, really, because it could be announced any moment. And they're saying that he could be in the dugout for Wednesday against Wolves. Now, he's available, of course. He's left, his available manager has gone from Paris Saint-Germain. He's highly thought of, though. He's highly regarded. He managed at Dortmund before that as well. Any thoughts? What do you know about him?
I'll be honest, I know a little. Obviously, I sort of had a quick look today, but I do need to do some more research on him, really. Obviously, he did a great job at Dortmund, got the best out of Aubameyang, obviously playing as a centre forward as well. So that's potentially promising when you look at Timo Werner's current form and confidence and finishing ability even. So that's one positive I'll take from it. He's worked with Pulisic before. Again, Pulisic, I'm a massive fan of him, but he has dropped out of form. Hopefully you can get him firing again. And then obviously he went to PSG, and don't get me wrong, he did a good job. Obviously they'll bounce you to the fact that he's won league and cup doubles. Obviously they've been in the Champions League, but at PSG, it's the league's questionable in terms of quality with the players at his disposal and budget. Anybody would do well at PSG. I wouldn't even think it would be a controversial opinion. So, yeah, there's question marks. I mean, the biggest thing for me is, will he be able to do better than Frank's done? And I don't think so, to be honest. So it just worries me massively.
Yeah, there's a few good points you mentioned there. I will say, though, if we're trying to flip it onto sort of a positive of why it's happened, he's got half a season, hasn't he, to sort of have a free crack at it, because if he doesn't, achieve success, he can fall back on, he came in struggling team midway through the season. It's not his fault. Whereas if it goes well, then he's got that momentum going into next year. Like yourself, sorry, go on.
No, I was just sorry to be interrupt, but yeah, he has got that excuse of, he had half a season, came into a bad side, but at the same time, he's 5 points off the top four. So to justify making that change and him as a manager going forward, especially sort of replacing a club legend, if we don't get top four now, there's question marks again for me. I'm sorry, but there is.
Yeah, there is. There's that settling in period. It'll either go really well and there'll be that initial manager bounce that you so often get, or it won't. We missed out on Big Sam, didn't we? he got snapped up. But yeah, I like yourself. I obviously know of him. I don't know a huge amount. I'm gonna go away and gonna rewatch a lot of games. But done a bit of research. I've seen he likes a 4-3-3. He's quite adaptable though. I've seen a 4-2-2-2. I might have added an extra 2 there. Essentially 2 forwards, 2 inverted wingers, and 2 midfielders, and a lot of emphasis I've read on fullbacks. Now look, we've got the fullbacks. If that's how he wants to play with offensive fullbacks, I'd like to say we wouldn't need signings there. Reece James in particular, if that's what his game's tailor-made for, and Ben Chilwell as well. He's good going forward. So they could be 2 players that really thrive. I just want to talk about Werner as well. You mentioned it there, and Havertz as well. They are 2 players that really are going to, if it is too cool to be announced, they're 2 players that are going to have to deliver, aren't they? Because yeah, it's going to take time coming into the Prem. They're not the 2 reasons solely why Frank's gone. That's just not the case. But if he does come in, Werner in particular, if he's going to try and play that Aubameyang role, he's got to get going, doesn't he? It's just consistency and his finishing.
Yeah, I think it's his finishing. I mean, obviously me and you had spoken last week. He had a goal ruled out for offside last week that was sort of taken neatly. And then obviously you go into yesterday, obviously with the missed penalty, but he did get an assist yesterday. And I don't know what the answer is. I think it's always hard to fix a player's confidence. I think sometimes that has to come from within them. I mean, he's not become a bad player or a bad finisher overnight. And I know, Min, you were talking, obviously, in the summer when himself and Kai Havertz were announced, we were like little children in a sweet shop. So I think it's hard. I do think it'll have an impact. He's done it before, as you said, with Aubameyang. But I don't think it'll be an overnight fix, if I'm honest.
No, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Now, we started this. We've sort of been preparing for this podcast, haven't we? Yeah. For this YouTube channel, been looking to launch it in the last couple of weeks. Brand new to it, so we didn't want to get going straight away. This is not the ideal time to start it, but it will sort of be a new era. We're going to follow how Tuchel does throughout it all, and I suspect it will be announced, if not tonight, perhaps tomorrow, because they're reporting that he'll be in the dugout by Wednesday. So we're going to be following how he does. But if you agree or disagree, I just want to let us know your thoughts on the general sacking. Just tweet in Chelsea_debate, or if you're enjoying the content, just like and subscribe below to the channel. Is there just one final thought on, Lampard and just thoughts towards his sacking before we go?
Devastated, genuinely, and you'd have to just say thank you, wouldn't you? I still think he's done a good job. So yeah, thanks ever so much, Frank. And like you say, you hope it's goodbye for now, and we'll see him again one day.
That'd be brilliant. Myself as well. I'm just absolutely gutted with it, but football moves fast, and we're gonna have to keep going. So we'll see how it pans out. But good luck to Frank in whatever he does, because I don't think this will be the last of him. And like you say, I could see him back in the future. But big thanks to everyone for tuning in for the first ever episode, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.